Welcome back to Beacon of Truth with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
And it is a very special edition of Beacon of Truth today as Deacon Harold is on the road. Remember, you can always check out his dynamic moments at deaconharold.com. And while he is traveling, we'd like to bring some of those on-the-road moments to you. So that way you know a little sneak peek of what you get when you see him live. So I am Ace Kay, ready to take you on today's journey as we're going to Mason, Ohio, to St. Susanna Parish School, where he's talking to a group of 7th and 8th graders about finding joy. So we join Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers today on Beacon of Truth.
So what I want to talk about today is the pursuit of happiness. And I'm going to propose to you that you cannot really have true happiness until you first have joy in your life. So happiness is something that's on the surface. Joy, that's something that comes from deep within yourself. Right? And so you can't really have a life of happiness without joy. Because if you try to have happiness without joy, then what are you basing that happiness on? Like, what things make you happy? What things make you happy? Soccer. Excellent. Very good. So sports, board games and video games. All right. Friends and family. Excellent. Hockey. Excellent. The 8th graders got nothing to say, huh? All right. And all those things are wonderful. All those things are wonderful. But if you base those just on they make you happy because how they make you feel, you really can't base a lifetime of joy on something like that. Right? So, for example, you guys remember Mother Teresa? You remember who she is? St. Teresa of Calcutta? So she worked with the poorest of the poor. I mean, I saw a documentary on her once where this news crew was following her around, and they showed her getting up in the morning, and the nuns would do an hour of adoration, and they would have mass, then a very simple breakfast, and then boom, out onto the streets. And you see hundreds of people walking up and down the streets of Calcutta in India, and on the side of the road like garbage were people with leprosy and pleurisy and AIDS and all other kinds of diseases. And there's Mother Teresa and her nuns picking up these people, bringing them back to the hospice, because these people are going to die. I mean, some of the nuns were nurses, but they're not miracle workers. I mean, these people are going to die. But at least they don't have to die in their own urine. They don't have to die alone or afraid. They're going to die knowing that somebody loved them. They're going to experience the love of God even in those few moments that they're clinging on to life before they go to truly meet God. That's incredible work that she was doing. But there were many times that Mother Teresa felt empty. She felt abandoned by God. She felt alone. She didn't feel God's presence while she was doing that work. So, in other words, she wasn't happy a lot of the times, but she was joyful. See, now we get to the heart of what I'm going to try to talk to you about today. So, happiness doesn't mean that you have joy, but you have to have true joy in order to be happy. So even though she experienced what's called the dark night of the soul, you're doing this work. She's doing incredible work. She got a Nobel Peace Prize. She attracted the attention of the entire world. And yet she felt empty, and sometimes she felt abandoned by God. Now, why do you think she felt that way? Why do you think God allowed her to feel that sense, even though she was doing amazing work, life-changing work? Why was she allowed to feel that feeling of abandonment or emptiness or like God wasn't with her? Why do you think she felt that? The devil trying to persuade her? That's a good answer, but no, I don't think that's what's going on. Anybody? Okay. How do you think the people that she was serving felt? You think they felt lonely? You think they felt abandoned? You think they felt loved by God? Those people on the streets? No. People would walk by them and just ignore them, like treat it like literally they were garbage. They wouldn't even look at them. So Mother Teresa, I believe, was allowed to experience what the people she was serving experienced. So God allowed her to enter into the experience of the people she was serving. She was allowed to feel how they felt. And I think that allowed her to serve them better because she was entering into their experience, right? A lot of times, that's what we need to do, to enter into people's experience in order to understand them better. Like, for example, I was speaking at a conference in Chicago, 5,000 middle schoolers there. You've heard of Seek? Have you heard of the Seek conference? No? Seek is like a huge event for college-age students. This was like an event like Seek, except for middle schoolers. And there were 5,000 middle schoolers there. So I spoke, there was two of us speaking, myself and a speaker named Paul J. Kim. So I spoke first, and then Paul was coming up, and Paul grabbed me and said, hey, after I'm finished, let's meet in the lobby of the hotel, and let's grab some dinner. I'm like, cool. And so I was dressed in a suit and a tie, and I had my crucifix and miraculous medal on, you know, and I walked to the elevator, and I got to the elevator, and the elevator door opened, and there was a little white lady in there. And she looked very nice, so I didn't say anything. I just smiled and like, hello, like I nodded my head, and her eyes got really big like this. She backed up to the back of the elevator and grabbed her purse like that. And I said, oh, she's scared. I said, okay. So I got into the elevator. I turned around. I didn't look at her or anything. I just turned around. I stood right in front of the doors. The elevator doors closed, boop, right in front of me. I pushed my floor. The doors opened. I got off the elevator. Now, why was she afraid of me? Now, I was a cop for 23 years, so I've investigated sexual assaults. So I understand that she might be experiencing post-traumatic stress syndrome because of something that happened to her. I get that. But why do you think she reacted that way? Did I do anything to make her think I was going to hurt her? Again, she might be experiencing some trauma. I get that. But why did she grab her purse? See, here's the thing. When you don't see someone the way God sees them, then things like that happen. And that hurt. Because she didn't see me, she saw a big black guy. And it hurts when people don't see you that way. Like, what she didn't see was like, I'm big, but I'm a teddy bear. I'm a teddy bear, man. But she didn't know that. She didn't know that I'm an immigrant to this country and the first person in my family ever to go to college. She didn't know that I wrote 6 books and I deaconed for the Pope. She didn't know all that. All she saw was this big, scary guy get to the elevator. So that didn't make me happy at all. But I was still filled with joy because I know who I am in the eyes of God. And that's what we need to do, start seeing each other the way God sees us. So let's talk about what joy actually is. So anybody know you St. Paul, right? You heard of St. Paul? He wrote most of the New Testament. In his letter to the Romans, he says this: those who live according to the flesh, and the word he uses there in Greek means not flesh on the bone, but like earthly things, worldly things, like possessions, right? So those who live according to the flesh, according to the things of the world, the thinking of the world, set their minds on the things of the world. Those who live according to the Spirit, to the mind and the heart of God, live according to the Spirit. That makes sense. Here's the key. To set the mind on the flesh is death. So the word that's used there is thanatos in Greek. In fact, you ever see that movie, the Marvel movie, the guy named Thanos? The guy that snaps his finger and everything's dead? That's where his name comes from. The Greek word is thanatos, which means death. But it doesn't mean just physical death. It means to cut yourself off from God's life. Right? So death, the way it's used here, means that when you focus on the things of the world, on worldly things, on earthly things, where all the things, the material possessions become the heart and the center of your life, you cut yourself off from God. That's what St. Paul is saying. But to set the mind on the Spirit, on the things of God, is life and peace. And that's where your joy comes from. When you live according to the ways and the thinking of God, you live according to the Spirit, that is where you get the life and peace, and that's where your joy comes from.
Bringing you dynamic moments from Deacon Harold himself as he is talking to the students at St. Susanna Parish School in Mason, Ohio. We're going to continue our discussion on finding joy next when Beacon of Truth returns.
Welcome back to Beacon of Truth with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
I'm Ace McCain, bringing you a very special edition of Beacon of Truth as Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers is on the road and giving us a chance to get some insights into how to find true joy. And as we do that, we're going to continue our discussion and his time with the students at St. Susanna Parish School in Mason, Ohio. So before we do that, we want to remind you can stream great Catholic content if you have the Lot 8 app. Make sure you select EWTN Radio and live stream anytime, anywhere, so you can take Beacon of Truth with you on the road. We continue our time from Mason, Ohio today with dynamic Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers on Beacon of Truth.
So joy comes from this intimate, personal, loving, and life-giving communion with God. That's what generates your joy. And so that's something that comes from the inside that radiates outward. So when people see us, they need to see the joy of the Lord. Not happiness, but joy. Happiness is just on the extra. For example, if you it's your birthday, and they give you a big old cake, and you're like happy because you love chocolate cake, and they take the cake from you. Whoa, what just happened? Your happiness is gone, right? That's the problem with focusing on the things of the world. Once those things are gone, our happiness is gone. But if you have joy from a deep, loving relationship with God, they could take all the things of the world away, but you still have joy. And you still have happiness because nothing in this world will ever give you the joy that God can give you. That's the point. Now, Jesus, we know, before he started his public ministry, we see this in Luke chapter 4, that he was in the desert, was being tempted by Satan, right? Because the devil didn't exactly know who he was, so he had to test, is this the one that's supposed to be the Savior? So he's trying to test him. And you remember, there's three things that the devil tests Jesus on. He says, if you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread. So Satan tries to satisfy our hunger and thirst for truth, goodness, and beauty for things that don't satisfy. So sometimes in our lives we have times of anger with someone that we love, or we're struggling with different things going on, like maybe the parents at home. I remember, I grew up with a single mom. When we immigrated to the United States, my dad didn't come with us. And when he finally did decide to join us over a year later, he was just not a very nice person. He drank a lot. And if you come from a house where alcohol is an issue, I don't even have to tell you of the hurtful and embarrassing moments that come from living in a house like that. My father never went to church. He was not a person of faith at all. Never saw my father in church growing up at all, ever. Every time he used God's name was as a curse. And my parents eventually got divorced. So when my dad left, I helped my mom take care of the family. So I'm the oldest. And it was okay. I love my mom. And I was okay helping her with my my brothers and my sister. I was all right. And I had to learn a lot of responsibility at 12 and 13. But I'm grateful for that experience now, because that's really helped me in all the things that I'm doing today. But it was hard going through things like that. And sometimes you're tempted to think that God doesn't love you. Why would God allow this to happen? God really doesn't love me. That's not true. That is not true at all. God loves you more than you can ever imagine. God loves you, each one of you, as if you were the only person that has ever been born. If you were the only person God ever created, he would have died for you. He would have done that for you. That's how much he loves you. That's not an act of, well, it is an act of torture and suffering, but ultimately it's an act of love. It's an act of love. I love you so much that I'm willing to give my life for you. Parents aren't perfect, but God's love is perfect. God will never, ever leave you or abandon you. That's how much he loves you. Never. After this experience with my dad, I was a monk. So when I joined the monastery, my father was mad. He was so upset. I'm the first person in my family ever to go to college. And I get an academic scholarship to Notre Dame. So now he expects me, after going to a school like that and doing really well, he expected me to go on Wall Street and make $1 million so he can brag to all his friends about what his Notre Dame son is doing. Instead, I felt God was calling me to monastic life. So I joined the Benedictines. And so out of respect, I went to his apartment to explain to him what I thought I'd be doing with the rest of my life. Our conversation was something like this. You're going to do what? You're the first person in our family ever to go to college. You go to Notre Dame. You said Notre Dame. You get an economics and business degree. And now you're going to waste your life living with a bunch of men? What's wrong with you? What am I supposed to tell my friends? I told him what he could tell his friends. And then I didn't speak to him for 18 years. As far as I was concerned, on that day, he died. In my heart, he was dead. I hated my father. I don't like saying that, but it's true. When my sister got married a number of years later, he didn't show up. I walked my sister down the aisle. When my kids were little, they were asking for their grandfather. They went to my wife, "Where's our grandfather?" And she had to explain that her father died when she was 18, had cancer. She goes, "Your daddy didn't even meet my daddy." Then they came to me, "Where's our grandfather?" And I looked my kids in the face and told them he's dead. So I get it. I totally get it. That you feel that God doesn't love you sometimes. But nothing could be further from the truth. It doesn't matter how you feel, because sometimes you go through experiences so that God could use that so you could become a better person. It's painful to go through. Just like that, it's painful to go through, but we know that that's not the end, is it? Did he just die on the cross and that's it? What happened after? Maybe we have to have another talk first, right, before this one. Now, what happened? Is that the end, him dying on the cross? What happened after that? He rose from the dead. If that's the end, then we're all wasting our time. That is our hope. That gives us security. That is not the end. So no matter what we're going through, how difficult it is, even though we're not happy, we have the joy of knowing that God's love will never abandon us, ever. And that's what now, I'm not going to tell the whole story about my dad, but It had a very good ending. So when my dad died, I was actually at his bedside praying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy when he died. So it was a long story about how that all happened, but God brought it back all the way around. Like, my dad completely changed his life when he finally encountered Jesus at 74 years old. My father didn't care anything about Jesus until he was 74. And that's when he started falling in love with Jesus. And everything in his life changed. He died at 82. And those years were the best years I ever had with my dad. So going through that stuff when we were younger was not happy. But I had a joy there because I knew that God still loved me. And the reason why I'm even explaining it like this to you, I travel 250,000 miles a year. I've been to 31 countries. I speak to thousands of young people. Like this Jackets, Papua New Guinea, I did a youth rally with over 2,000 kids in Papua New Guinea. And everywhere I go, kids tell me they're not sure how much God loves them. They tell me that. Well, Deacon, we're not sure how much God really loves us. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. It's that knowledge and that assurance that God loves you that will give you the joy. No matter what is going on in your life, knowing that God wants you to share life with him. Intimate, personal, loving, and life-giving communion. That's going to last you your whole life. Because you may want to do sports, but when you get my age, you ain't going to be doing sports. The only thing I have now that I had when I was your age is my faith. That's going to last you your entire life, no matter what you're going to be doing. Your faith is going to last you, and you're going to have that relationship with God your entire life. And I'm telling you about these temptations because there are going to be times in your life where people or circumstances are going to tempt you and try to pull you away from a relationship with God. So one of these things that's going to tempt you are lies. They're going to try to lie to you. They're lying to you now. They're lying to you saying that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. That's a lie. They're trying to tell you a child in the womb is not a person, it's a blob of tissue. That's a lie. They're trying to tell you marriage is something else other than a man and a woman. That's a lie. They're trying to tell you that old people are worthless. If you're old and you're sick, you're a burden on your family, you're a burden on society, you're a burden on the healthcare system. We'll give you two choices. We'll kill you, euthanasia, or we'll give you medication to kill yourself, assisted suicide. That's what you are being told today. That's what you hear every day of your life out there in a world that's focusing on the things of the flesh, on worldly things. That's not us. Remember, we focus on the things of God, on the things of the Spirit that gives us life and peace, which is rooted in truth.
Giving us a better understanding of how to find true joy. That's our topic today from St. Susanna Parish School in Mason, Ohio. I am HBK. As Beacon of Truth concludes, we're going to continue our time while Deacon is live and in transit to his next stop. He will be in studio starting tomorrow for Word of God Wednesday, so looking forward to that. But also remember, if you are missing out on Psalms today, you can catch up on the Soulful Psalms anytime when you just stream EWTN.com/podcast or search Soulful Psalms wherever you listen to podcasts. We're going to continue and conclude our time at St. Susanna Parish School when Beacon of Truth returns.
Welcome back to Beacon of Truth with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
I'm Ace McCain with a very special edition of Beacon of Truth, as a dynamic deacon is helping us to understand what finding true joy is all about. Speaking to the students at St. Susanna Parish School in Mason, Ohio. Before we conclude our conversation today, we want to remind you, Podcast Central always giving you great Catholic content and conversations with one of our newest members to Podcast Central, Dive Deep. We've got Deacon Charlie giving real conversations and allowing us to understand the diversity of our faith and our culture. Well, find out more about that. EWTN Podcast Central, available at EWTN.com/podcast. And we continue our Dynamic Deacon live on the road moments today with St. Susanna Parish School in Mason, Ohio, today on Beacon of Truth.
So all the material stuff, how many cars, how big your house is, who cares? What matters is what kind of person you are on the inside. Because when God looks at you, He doesn't look at you through the lens of your possessions or what clothes you wear. God looks at your heart. He wants to see what kind of person you are on the inside. That's what matters. Not the outside, the inside. And that's how we need to start looking at people. We need to start looking at their hearts, not their possessions. Then finally, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. So remember, they're at the top of the temple, what's called the parapet of the temple. Throw yourself off from here. And Satan quotes scripture to the word of God, Psalm 91. He will give angels charge of you, and on the hands that will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against the stone. What arrogance. So Satan's trying to say that relying on our job, on all these things, that's going to make us safe and secure, not in our knowledge and love of God. Right? So those are the things that are going to be happening in your life that are going to tempt you away. Now, I'm going to propose ways that we can stay in that loving relationship to keep that joy going. So the first is, I'm thinking of 3 groups of people that will help you to discover your purpose and your joy in life. Three groups of people. What do you think one of those groups of people are? Parents. Okay, very good. That's one group I'm thinking of. Parents. Right? Again, parents aren't perfect, but they will help you discover. For example, my mom, when we were small, I remember my mom kneeling down behind me and my brother. So my brother, I was kneeling, my brother was kneeling, my other brother and sister were too small. And then my mom would say, "Our Father." And we repeat, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be that." We learn Our Father, Hail Mary, glory be to the Father, angel of God. Every night. I still remember that. My mom kneeling us down to pray. My mom took us to Mass every Sunday. Even if she was working overtime, she would come home, make sure that we got to Mass. Right? So my mom had a very simple faith, but it was not just what she did, but her not just what she said, but her example. She was a cardiac care nurse. She worked on the graveyard shift. She worked 11 at night till 7 in the morning. And many, many times she went to work with holes in her shoes and runs in her stockings because we needed stuff. And she sacrificed and worked all those hours so we could go to a school like this. For her, Catholic education was very, very important. And she sacrificed. So I've learned the meaning of sacrifice, and I learned the meaning of being a gift to others from my mom. Right? So parents, even though they're not perfect, they're still on that list. Outstanding. Who else? Parents. Teachers, I'll save them for last. That's the other group. One more. Gwen? What? Oh, friends. Oh, no. Forget friends. No, they're not on that list at all. Priests. Priests, deacons, right? Because they're supposed to be examples and witnesses of God's love, so they can help you. But the third one I want to talk about, teachers. Now, how important are teachers in your life? Now, for me, like I said, I went to Catholic school, and an encounter with a teacher changed everything for me. Because, when I was in 7th and 8th grade, I was somewhat of a little bit of a troublemaker at school. Why? Because they had no idea what was going on in my house. All they know is I showed up to school and Harold would be in trouble again because I was like kind of acting out and stuff. Because again, they had no idea what was going on in my house. So that's all they saw was the kid that caused trouble. When I got to high school, and you'll be there next year, right? My very first exam, my very first grade in high school was history. The teacher was Mr. Frank Mullen. And Mr. Mullen handed out his exam papers. He would walk up and down the desks, and he would turn your paper over on your desk. And he'd then walk down the next aisle of desks and put your paper over on your desk. And he'd go up the next aisle. So he got to me. I'm nervous. I studied. So I'm like, okay, my first high school test, my first grade. I'm thinking this is going to set the tone for my high school, And he puts the paper, and he keeps going. And I went, B+. And I audibly said, yes! And I'll never forget this. Mr. Mullen stopped walking. And he backed up. And he looked at my little 14-year-old self in the face. He goes, and you're happy with that? And I'm thinking, yeah, B+ is pretty good. That's a good way to start. I'm okay with that, But I was so excited to go home and show my mom, Mommy, look, I studied, I got a B+. And then I told her what Mr. Mullen said. And she said, no, son, you don't understand. What he meant was you could do better than that. And it was the first time that anyone other than my mother said I can be more than my environment. Because we grew up single mom, week wake. Anybody familiar with New Jersey? Any adults here? Week wake section of Newark? That's not a place that you want. Vailsburg and Week Wake are the two places in Newark you don't want to be. We grew up in Week Wake. Gangs and stuff. But Mr. Munn said, you can do better. You can be better than your environment. And that changed something in me. I said, what if I did study a little bit harder? What if I did? And there were teachers at that school, at that Catholic school, that believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. And it was because of teachers like the ones you have here, your teachers, your administrators, that I am the person that I am today. In fact, I've written 6 books. In my first book, I specifically listed the names of my teachers in that book. Because I knew if it wasn't for them, I would not be here. Because the only reason they're teaching here is for the money. That's all they care about. Is those big fat paychecks they get every week. They're all laughing. Because they know that's not true. They don't make any money teaching here. You know why they're here? Because they love you. I love you. That's why I'm here. They're not paying me to be here. I'm here because I care about you guys. Because I wish someone would have told me this when I was in 7th and 8th grade. And it made all the difference in the world. My mom made sure there were other men in my life, because my father wasn't there, other men like my wrestling coach, Mr. Frank DiPiano. He saw something in me as a 14-year-old freshman. He saw something in me. So after practice, and wrestling practices are grueling, he'd stay. He goes, can you stay another half an hour? And we work on a particular move, or we work on a particular skill. He saw something in me. So by the time I became a senior, I was undefeated my senior year in wrestling, ranked number 2 in the state of New Jersey, because of men like Mike DiPiano. You may not appreciate them now, but all these teachers in here can make a huge difference in your life. So parents, priests, deacons, and your teachers, They're here to help instill that joy, that love of God in your heart. Because what happens if you don't do that? If you don't have that love? When you, for example, so many young people say that Mass is boring, right? You've heard that. Mass is boring. Why do you say that? Because you don't know why you're here. Why are you here? Because, we have to go because we go to Catholic school every Wednesday, whatever, Friday, whatever it is. We have to go to Mass and we have to go on Sunday, and then you're saying to yourself, well, my friends' parents don't make them go. Why do we have to go? And what does any of this have to do with my life every day? How many of you thought that before? Honest. Just be honest. I mean, you're not going to get in trouble. Don't just do it because, I'll look bad. No, seriously, I'm being honest with you. Just be honest. How many of you, raise your hand. Thank you, which is most of you. Thank you for being honest. Thank you. But yet, in your heart of hearts, you want what Jesus is giving you here. The problem is this: when we teach you, right, we teach you things about Jesus. We teach you things about the Catholic faith. But what you can't teach is how to fall in love with somebody. So it just can't be head knowledge. It has to be heart knowledge. So what I try to do, I'm not going to do it today, because that's not the foundation of this talk. But what I try to do when I talk about the Mass is, how do you connect what happens here to your everyday life? Why are you here? Why are we doing the things that we do here? And what does any of that have to do with you? That's the stuff. Because in your heart of hearts, for example, I'm not a big television watcher. I don't really watch. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl. I just don't like television. But during the pandemic, when I was home and I couldn't travel, I watched a little more TV than I would normally watch. And I'm flipping through the channels. I'm shocked how many shows there are about vampires and zombies. Right? I mean, I'm flipping through Dawn of the Dead, Waking Dead, Last of Us, all these different movies. And then the vampire stuff. Blade, and then Twilight, or Traffic Light, or Stoplight, whatever they call that, right? I'm thinking, why are there so many shows about vampires and zombies? And then I thought about it. What do vampires and zombies have in common? They're dead. But yet they're alive, right? So what's a vampire that's dead have to do to stay alive? Drink blood. What's a zombie that's dead have to do to stay alive? Eat flesh, eat brains. So what the culture's craving is flesh and blood. But because they don't know who's in that tabernacle, because they don't know what's happening at this altar at Mass, because there's a serious disconnect between what happens here and your life every day out there, we're trying to find flesh and blood in creatures that are dead, that can't give us anything except take our money. When for free, and why is it free? He already paid the price. You can come to the altar of God and receive the true flesh and blood of Jesus that will give you life forever. Vampires and zombies, make believe. What happens at this altar at every Mass is the really real. You will not get closer to God on this earth than when you receive Him in the Eucharist. Body, blood, soul, divinity. The next time you'll be that close to God is when you're dead and you're standing before Jesus for the particular judgment. On earth, it's the Eucharist. That's real. Vampires and zombies are not. This is real. And what's God saying? I love you so much. I want to create my life in you. That's what the Eucharist is about. He loves you so much that He literally wants to give you his life. And that's what he's doing here. And that's what gives you your joy. Don't let anybody take that from you. Nobody. Let me put it to you like this. You got some of you are athletes, right? Now, athletes have to go to practice. There are a lot of amazing reasons why you go to practice. What is the main reason why you go to practice? Again, there's lots of good reasons. What's the main reason? To get better. Wrong! Great reason, not the best reason for going to practice. Think about it like this. Who's the soccer player? Okay, got a bunch of soccer players. Great. I like soccer, although I still don't understand offsides. My daughter plays soccer. She was actually being looked at by the Oregon Olympic Development Team. She's really good. And so I still don't get offsides. But imagine you're in the game, right? You're playing soccer. You're in the game. Now, practice doesn't count. They don't keep score in practice. They keep score in the game. So you're in the game. The ball's coming to you. Do you have time to stop and think, here comes the ball. I must now blade my foot at a 45-degree angle. I must now kick the ball with such trajectory as to place it in front of my teammate or not too far or else it'll be offsides. Do you have time to think about that? No. Anybody play softball or baseball? Okay, imagine you're in the box. Ball's coming to you, 70 miles an hour. Do you have time to think, here comes the ball. I must now shift my weight to my back leg. I must now rotate my hips. I must now look at the ball and make eye contact. Do you have time to think about that? No. So what do you do in practice? Soccer. Okay, soccer practice starting. Do you kick the ball once and go home? How many times do you kick the ball in a practice during the week? Hundreds and hundreds of times per week. Baseball, softball. How many times okay, practice starting. Okay, go home. You swung the bat once. Is that how practice works? You do it. Oh, how many times do you swing the bat in practice? Hundreds of times, over and over. What skill in practice are you trying to develop? There's a name for it. Muscle memory. Muscle memory. The reason why you do those things over and over and over again, because you're training your body that when you're in the game, that you don't have to think, that your body reacts and responds to the situation it finds itself in. That's why you do those things over and over and over and over again. Muscle memory. Now, my young friends, mass is practice. Because the game is not in here. The game is out there, outside the walls of this church, outside the walls of the school, where this culture is trying to destroy God's life in you. God is giving you life in the church, in the Eucharist, through your teachers, your parents. We talked about this. But the culture is trying to take that joy from you. It's trying to take God's life from you by lying to you to your face. So what does God provide us in practice, in the Mass? Word and sacrament. Word and sacrament. Over and over again. Why? We're building spiritual muscle memory. And God gives us everything we need in word and sacrament. Word and sacrament, over and over again. Because He prepares us that when we leave, practice, go out to the game, He gives us everything that we need to win. And I don't know about you, but I don't like losing. My very favorite match, my senior year, like I said, I was undefeated. I was ranked number 2 in the state of New Jersey. I was wrestling the number 5 ranked wrestler. And I still have the clip from the Newark Star-Ledger newspaper sports section. Said I was going to lose that match because the kid was bigger and stronger than me, which he was. Patterson East Side High School. It was an away match at his gym. And so after weigh-ins, We're warming up on the mat. His team is warming up off of the mat. Now, my team didn't do this, but there's some teams that when you pin somebody, you ever see those big metal clothespins? Like when you close a diaper with, like the big ones? They would put those on their sweatshirt. This guy had pins going all down his arm. All the people he pinned. And so they got up and started running laps around the mat. So he'd see me sitting there, he'd go like this. He'd run and he'd shake his arm. And the pins would go, chicka, 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 chicka. He'd do another lap. He'd see me sitting there, he'd shake that arm. And the pins, chicka, 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 clicking together. I'm like, okay, I ain't got time for that. And the gym is packed. Why? Two top 5 wrestlers, both undefeated, going at each other. Gym was packed. So the match starts to get to our weight class. I run out there. Boo! Whole gym booing me. He runs out there. I said, I ain't got time for this. Ready? Wrestle. Bam, we're in it. So wrestling is 3 2-minute periods. At the end of the second period, I'm down by 1 point. But I know I can beat this kid. I gave him 1 point for an escape. I actually gave him that point. So it was 1-0. So I'm down by 1 point. I know I can beat it. Because any good athlete knows 10% of the sport is physical. What's the other 90%? Right here. So any wrestlers here? Anybody familiar with wrestling? Not the WWF fake stuff like real, like Olympics. You familiar? Okay. So I'm in referee's position. Okay? I'm down. He's on top. Now, my typical move from referee's position, when the ref blows the whistle, I do what's called a stand-up. So I push back into my opponent. So I push my arms back, spring back into him. I'm blocking, peeling, creating space, cutting, and attacking. Because in wrestling, you never want to stop moving. You never want to stop moving. So I had a strategy. The ref blows the whistle the first time. I fire up to this position here, and I stopped moving on purpose. I knew it was going to happen. He chopped me down, and we rolled off the mat. So we go back to the center of the mat again. I look at Coach. Coach is like, Mr. DiPiano. This means pick it up. I'm like, down again. Ref blows the whistle. Ready? Wrestle. I back it, and I stopped. I stopped again on purpose. Same thing happened. Chopped me down. We rolled off the mat. I go back to the center. I look at Coach is like, I'm like, now, I've now wrestled this kid for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. What does he think I'm going to do the third time the ref blows the whistle? The same move, right? So what does that tell me? As soon as the ref blows the whistle, he's going to immediately, without even thinking, go to a counter stand-up. So he thinks I'm going to push into it. So he's automatically going to do like this. That tells me where his center of gravity is. That tells me where his hips are. That tells me where his arm position is going to be. So as soon as the ref blows the whistle the third time, just like I knew, he went like this, and I did a crossover switch. I didn't come up at all. I did a crossover switch. I chopped his right arm through his crotch. I grabbed it with my left hand, and I threw a half Nelson around his neck, and I started cranking the half. Now, every time you crank a half Nelson, the more you crank, the tighter it gets. And I cranked that half, nice and slow, so he could feel every ounce of pain as I was turning him on his back. And right before I pinned him, I whispered in his ear, "Does your mother have a camera?" Boom, ref blows the whistle. I pinned him. The gym is dead silent. My teammates are cheering behind me. I get up, I go to shake his hand. He lunges, because the ref didn't hear what I said, but he heard what I said about the camera thing. He lunges at me. The ref jumps in between us. I'm like, yeah, huh? And I go back. Why? My attitude is when I walked on that mat, Nobody beats me. Nobody beats me. And our attitude, we walk out of church after Mass on Sunday, nobody takes my faith from me.
Wrapping up our time in Mason, Ohio, helping us to find joy. That's dynamic Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. Anytime you want to see him live and in person, check out his tour schedule at deaconharold.com. And remember, tomorrow is Word of God Wednesday, so bring your Bible as we dive into Acts chapter 3, and we'll do the first 10 verses to really give us insights into our walk. And as we are in the midst of our Easter season, this is a great time to do that. So we'll see you back tomorrow. Remember to let God define who you are. I'm Ace McKay, and we'll see you tomorrow on Beacon of Truth.